My name is Frank Delaney, and I've spent the last 30 years under the hood of one car or another. My hands are calloused, nails stained permanent black from decades of motor oil, but they're steady. They held my daughter, Madison, when she was 6 pounds of newborn fury and warmth. They held her again when she was 5 and scraped her knee on the sidewalk. And again when she was 17, curled up on the couch, crying over her first heartbreak. There was a time when Maddie thought I could fix anything. Her mother passed when Maddie was just 8. Cancer, quick and cruel. We didn't have time to prepare. No long goodbyes, no last-minute wisdom passed down. Just one hospital room, one last breath, and then it was me and her. I remember the way Maddie looked up at me after the funeral, her tiny hand gripping mine like it was the only thing keeping her upright. "You're all I need now, Daddy." She whispered it into my shirt, and I buried my tears in her hair. From that day on, I didn't live for much except her. I never remarried. I worked overtime, weekends, holidays, anything to make sure she had every opportunity. I taught her how to drive in my old Chevy pickup. I sat through every dance recital, clapped louder than anyone else even when she forgot half the routine. I drove 6 hours through a snowstorm once just to drop off a forgotten research paper in her freshman year at college. I was the dad who showed up. Always. We had our routines, our traditions. Sunday pancakes. Movie nights with root beer floats. Christmas mornings in matching pajamas. Yes, even when she was in high school and rolled her eyes but still wore them. I still have the VHS tapes and burned DVDs to prove it. Back then, she used to call me her hero. She said at the night she got her first job at the coffee shop, holding the tiny paycheck with pride. "I want to be like you, Dad. You never give up." That night, I cried alone in the kitchen, holding that check like it was a trophy. Because in that moment, I believed all the sacrifices meant something. But life has a way of shifting under your feet without warning. You blink, and the little girl who once begged you to braid her hair is talking about destination weddings and custom floral arches. You try to keep up, to nod and smile when she mentions things you can't pronounce, let alone afford. And then one day, the shift is no longer subtle. It's a rupture. The first sign came when she got engaged to Trevor. Nice enough guy, worked in finance, always on his phone. Polite, but distant. The kind of man who shakes your hand without really looking you in the eye. Maddie lit up when she talked about him, so I tried to push down my unease. What did I know about love in the age of social media and curated proposals? Still, I noticed the change. Calls came less frequently. Texts, even less. I'd ask to meet for lunch and get, "Sorry, super slammed this week. Next time, Dad." But there was always another next time. When she finally asked me to walk her down the aisle, I felt that old familiar tug of pride. I imagined her arm looped through mine, her eyes brimming with tears, just like when she was little. I pictured the music starting, everyone rising, and me being the anchor in that whirlwind moment. That dream didn't last long. Because when she followed it up with, "You'll need to wear the same suit the groomsmen are getting." Tom Ford. "It's around $5,000, my heart dropped. I laughed. I thought it was a joke. I said, "Kiddo, I haven't spent $5,000 on clothes in the last 20 years combined." She didn't laugh. Not even a smile. "Dad, this is a formal event. It's important. Everyone's investing in the aesthetic. We're going with a luxury theme. You can't just show up in one of your mechanic jackets." I stared at her, trying to find the girl who once danced in the living room in her pajamas and used my arms as her jungle gym. But she wasn't there. Instead, there was a woman I barely recognized, measuring me in terms of aesthetic alignment. That was the moment I felt the first crack in the foundation, the first pang of something worse than sadness, something like betrayal. She used to call me her hero. But now, apparently, I wasn't even good enough to walk her down the aisle unless I did it in a label I couldn't afford. And so, the story that started with love began to take a turn, one I never saw coming. The first time I saw the venue, I felt like a lost tourist. It was one of those boutique winery estates upstate, surrounded by lavender fields and white oak trees. Elegant, sure, but it reeked of curated perfection. The kind of place where the air itself felt expensive. Maddie insisted I come for the walkthrough. Said it would help align expectations. I showed up in clean jeans and a flannel shirt. Not my Sunday best, but decent. Everyone else looked like they'd stepped out of a catalog. Her future in-laws, Margaret and Charles Whitmore, approached with their kisses and a whiff of disapproval. Margaret clutched her pearls, literally, and Charles offered me a limp handshake while scanning me like I was a misdelivered package. "Frank, so nice of you to make it," Margaret said, her tone suggesting the opposite. "Trevor tells us you run a garage." "That's quaint." I nodded. "Keeps the lights on." "Fixed Trevor's alternator, actually. Didn't charge him." Her smile froze. "Oh, how generous." Maddie appeared a second later, bustling with a clipboard and a headset, like a general on a battlefield. Her eyes landed on my flannel, and her smile twitched. "Dad, we talked about the vibe, remember? Something more elevated." "I'm here, aren't I?" I said. "That should count for something." She kissed my cheek half-heartedly. "Of course. It's a big day, you know? I need everything to be perfect." As we walked the grounds, the planner, a tightly wound woman named Elise, rattled off details like a military officer. There were drone shots scheduled, a champagne wall, a harpist flown in from Vienna. I stood there clutching my baseball cap, trying to remember when weddings turned into Broadway productions. When we got to the aisle, Elise paused. "Now, the father of the bride entrance, he'll be in the Navy Tom Ford, same as the groomsmen. It'll be a stunning, cohesive visual." I blinked. "You mean me?" Elise looked at Maddie. Maddie nodded, not meeting my eyes. "That's the plan," she said quietly. I cleared my throat. "Maddie, that suit costs $5,000. She didn't flinch. "I know. That's more than I spent on your mom's car." "It's not just about the suit, Dad. It's the look. The whole thing is very curated." I stepped back. "Curated? Are you hearing yourself?" Her voice dropped. "Please, don't make this a thing." I wanted to say, "This is already a thing. You made it a thing the second you put a price tag on my place in your life." But I didn't. Not then. Instead, I nodded stiffly and sat through the rest of the rehearsal, clapping politely while Margaret made passive-aggressive comments about seating arrangements and Charles suggested the flower girl should look less working class. Afterward, I pulled Maddie aside near the fountain. "Can I just talk to you? Not as a client or a cog in the wedding wheel. Just as your dad." She looked hesitant but followed me a few steps away. "I'm proud of you," I said. "I always have been. But this isn't you. Since when did you care more about labels than people?" She crossed her arms. "It's not about labels. It's about standards. You didn't have standards when I was making mac and cheese and cutting your sandwiches into hearts because you missed your mom." Her expression flickered, but she recovered fast. "Things change." "No," I said. "People change." She stiffened. "Look, I've worked hard to build a life with Trevor. His family has expectations. I just want everything to be seamless. And you think I don't fit? I think if you can't support the vision, maybe it's better if you don't walk me down the aisle at all." That sentence. God, that sentence. It hit like a tire iron to the gut. I didn't respond. Couldn't. I just stared at her, wondering where my daughter went. She walked away, leaving me by the fountain, my reflection rippling in the water, distorted, unfamiliar. That night, I sat in my truck outside the garage, staring at the stars and nursing a coffee that had long gone cold. I thought about taking a loan, maybe putting the suit on a credit card. But deep down, I knew it wasn't about the money. It was about dignity. And for the first time since she was born, I wondered if being her hero had an expiration date. I spent the next few days walking around in a fog. Everywhere I went, the shop, the grocery store, the diner where I get my morning coffee. People asked how the wedding planning was going. And I'd smile, say it's coming along, and then sit alone in my truck, staring at the steering wheel like it held the answers I couldn't find anywhere else. I told myself over and over, just get the damn suit. It's not like I hadn't made sacrifices before. I'd skipped vacations, drained savings, even pawned my watch once to cover Maddie's rent during college. What was another few grand? But something in me resisted. Not out of spite, but because this time the sacrifice felt less like love and more like submission. I drove out to the boutique where she'd pointed me. A sleek glass building with valet parking and not a single price tag in sight. A young guy with perfect teeth greeted me like I'd walked into a sacred temple. "You must be Mr. Delaney," he said, ushering me in. "We've been expecting you." He brought out the Tom Ford tuxedo like it was the Ark of the Covenant, laying it across a leather settee. I ran my hand over the fabric. Soft as silk, midnight blue with black satin lapels. It was sharp, no doubt about it. I tried it on. Fit like a glove. And yet, standing in that three-way mirror, I didn't see myself. I saw a costume. A uniform meant to disguise everything I was. Every hard-earned callous. Every sleepless night in a freezing garage. Every hot dog dinner shared over a busted transmission. It wasn't pride I saw in the mirror. It was erasure. The clerk came back with a smile. It's a perfect fit. Shall we ring you up? I asked how much again, just to hear it out loud. $5,160 with tax and alterations. I handed the tuxedo back, hung it carefully on its hanger, and walked out. I didn't say a word. He didn't try to stop me. He must have known by the look on my face. I wasn't coming back. That night, I called my brother Rick. You serious? He said, after I told him everything. She really said you're not welcome if you don't wear that suit? Not in so many words, I said. But close enough. Rick let out a long breath. Jesus, Frank. I mean, I get wanting things nice, but that's just wrong. She's not a kid anymore. No, but she's still your kid. And kids don't get to rewrite history just because they found a wealthier crowd. I wanted him to say what I was doing was right. I wanted permission to feel hurt. But he, like me, was stuck in that old-school dad mindset. Suck it up, provide, show up no matter what. So when he said, just buy the suit, man, it's one day, I hung up feeling lonelier than before. The truth was, I'd spent a lifetime being her foundation, her fallback, her shelter. I didn't ask for praise or repayment. I didn't need a parade. But I needed to be seen for who I was, not what I could afford. And now, it seemed, even that was too much. A few days before the wedding, I tried one last time. I called Maddie. She answered with a sigh. Hey, Dad. Everything okay? I just wanted to talk. Just us. Can it be quick? I've got a vendor call in 10. I nodded, even though she couldn't see. Sure. I just need to ask, are you really okay with me not being there? She was quiet for a second. I didn't say that. You said if I didn't wear the suit, I shouldn't walk you down the aisle. I said maybe it was better if you didn't. Because I don't want to be embarrassed, Dad. It's not about the money. It's about showing you care. That one stung. As if everything I'd done until now, every birthday cake baked from scratch, every doctor's visit I rushed to, every single time I chose her over myself, meant nothing if I didn't put on a goddamn tuxedo. So I can only show I care if I go into debt to wear something I'll never use again. That's not what I meant. It's what you said. She exhaled hard. Why are you making this about you? I'm not. I'm just tired, Maddie. Tired of pretending like love has to come with conditions now. I thought we were past that. She didn't answer. Just silence. Then, a soft, cold, I have to go. And just like that, the call ended. I sat there, holding my phone, staring at the screen like maybe it would change its mind. It didn't. She was gone, busy with flowers and timelines and coordinated perfection. That night, I made my decision. No tux. No aisle. No pretending. Some would call it pride. Others might say stubbornness. But for me, it wasn't either. It was the last boundary I had left. The morning of Maddie's wedding broke quiet and pale. No sunshine, just a low, gray sky and the kind of stillness that settles over a house when it knows something is missing. I woke up early out of habit, my body still wired from years of weekday alarms and weekend tune-ups, but I didn't get dressed. I padded into the kitchen in the same flannel pajama pants I'd had for over a decade and cracked open a beer before the clock even hit 8. Not proud of it, but I needed something cold and bitter in my hand to keep me from reaching for the phone. The wedding was set for noon. I knew the schedule down to the minute. Maddie had emailed it to me, color-coded and bulleted. Hair and makeup at 6:30 a.m. First look photos at 9 o'clock. Guest seating at 11:45. Ceremony starts promptly at noon. I stared at that email more times than I could count, as if the sheer repetition would rewrite the outcome. Instead of standing in front of a mirror tightening a tie, I dug through a box in the closet. The one labeled Maddie. I hadn't opened it in years. Inside were crumpled drawings, handprint turkeys from elementary school, a plastic tiara from her 7th birthday. At the bottom sat the DVDs I made from old camcorder tapes. I loaded one up, Maddie's birthday bash, age 8. The screen flickered to life, and there she was, missing her front teeth and wearing a superhero cape over her party dress. "Dad, I want to fly," she shouted, running straight into my arms as the screen shook with laughter. I watched us spin around in the living room. I heard my voice, 10 years younger, stronger, say, "You're already flying, sweetheart. You've got wings. I'm just your lift." I sat back and drank slow, letting the memory wash over me like warm rain. Part of me wanted to fast forward to the end, as if maybe the story had changed. But I knew better. The story stayed the same. I was her launchpad once, her safe place. Now I was just a footnote on her timeline. At 11:52, my phone buzzed. It was a text from my sister, "Nora, you really should have been here. She's crying." I stared at the words like they were in a foreign language. I typed and deleted 5 different replies. What do you say to that? "I'm sorry she's upset. I'm sorry I'm not who she wants me to be anymore. I'm sorry I raised her better than this, and now I'm the one paying for it." In the end, I didn't reply. Because the truth was, I didn't know why she was crying. Was it because I wasn't there? Because she didn't get the photo op she'd planned? Or maybe because, deep down, some part of her knew she'd drawn a line and dared me not to cross it, and I didn't. And that hurt her. But she didn't leave me much choice. She may have expected me to cave, to show up at the last minute with the damn tuxedo and a sheepish smile. But I didn't. I couldn't. Because showing up under those terms would have meant leaving my self-respect at the door. So instead, I watched the rest of the video. Listened to her sing off-key, shout, "I love you, Daddy," at the top of her lungs, and felt the sting of contrast between then and now. Around 1:30, Nora sent another message. Just a photo this time. Maddie walking down the aisle alone. No Trevor at her side yet. No arm to lean on. Just her, bouquet clutched tight, jaw set. I stared at that image for a long time. Not out of spite. Not even regret. Just grief. The quiet kind that doesn't make a scene, that builds up behind your ribs like pressure behind a dam. I got up, walked to her old bedroom, still untouched, though she hadn't lived here in years, and sat on the edge of her twin bed. The pink sheets were faded, the posters curling at the corners. I used to sit right here when she was sick or couldn't sleep. I'd read stories. I'd hum lullabies. I'd make promises I fully believed I could keep. "I'll always be there," I had told her once, the night before her first big recital. And I had been. Until today. But today wasn't a broken promise. Today was a boundary. A necessary one. One that cost me more than any suit ever could. I whispered into the quiet, "I love you, kid. Even now. Especially now." And then I turned off the video, folded up the pajamas I hadn't taken off, and poured out the rest of the beer. Because something told me this was only the beginning of the fallout. The day after the wedding, the house felt heavier than usual. Like the walls themselves knew something had shifted. I went to the shop early, hoping the hum of engines and the familiar smell of oil would ground me. But even the grease under my nails felt hollow. I wiped my hands on a rag and stared at my phone, half hoping for a message, half dreading one. None came from Maddie, but plenty came from others. My sister Nora called around noon. She skipped the pleasantries. "She was a wreck," she said. "You could have at least shown up." I clenched my jaw, already tired. She told me not to come if I wasn't in the suit. "You could have sat in the back. Said something afterward. Anything." I wasn't invited to sit in the back. I was told not to come at all unless I paid to look the part. Nora sighed, frustrated. "You're both so damn stubborn." She's not a kid anymore, Nora. She made a choice. So did I. There was a long pause on the other end. "She's on her honeymoon now. Santorini. But you're the talk of the reception." Margaret Whitmore made sure of that. "Of course she did. They're painting you like you abandoned her. That you embarrassed her." I stared at the floor, heart pounding in my ears. I wanted to throw my phone, scream into the void, march into that mansion they rented, and ask them what they knew about being a father. But I didn't. I just sat on the edge of the workbench, feeling smaller than I had in years. Later that evening, a few of my old friends dropped by the shop. Bob, who used to coach Maddie's soccer team, and Darren, who I'd gone to high school with. They'd heard through the grapevine. "You did the right thing, Frank," Bob said, sipping a beer. "It's not about the damn suit. It's about respect." Darren nodded. You're not a mannequin. You're her father. Their support should have helped. And maybe in some ways, it did. But it didn't fill the silence in my house. It didn't erase the sound of Maddie's laughter on that DVD or the way she used to grip my hand when she was nervous. I tried writing things down, old habit from when Maddie was in middle school and struggling with grief. I used to keep a journal so I wouldn't dump my emotions on her. That night, I opened it again. June 9th. She's gone. Not in the physical sense, but in the way that matters. The girl who called me her hero has replaced me with expectations. Ones I can't afford, and worse. Ones I won't pretend to meet. If loving her means shrinking myself, then maybe she doesn't love me. Not really. Maybe she loves the version of me she thinks fits the photo albums. I stared at those words long after I wrote them. The hardest part wasn't being left out. It was knowing I'd been replaced. Not by Trevor or his rich family, but by an idea. A new image of success and class and perfection that no longer had room for calloused hands or hand-me-down wisdom. Still, I didn't call her. And she didn't call me. The silence became a living thing between us, breathing, watching, waiting. I kept wondering if she'd wake up one morning on that sunlit Greek balcony and think, my dad should be here. But even if she did, I didn't expect the apology. Because the older you get, the more you learn. Some wounds don't come with apologies. Some love stories, yes, even between parent and child, don't always end in hugs. Sometimes they end in boundaries. And sometimes, holding your boundary costs you everything. It was 3 weeks before I heard from her. The message came in at 2:17 a.m., one of those hours when the world is quiet enough to hear your own heartbeat. I woke to the vibration on the nightstand, blinking into the darkness as I reached for the phone. The screen glowed with her name, Maddie, and for a second, my chest lit up like it used to when she called me Daddy, just to say hi. But the message was short, measured. I wish things had gone differently. No apology, no explanation. Just a half-thought sentence dropped into my lap like it was supposed to fix the crack in the foundation. I stared at it for a long time. I could have said a lot. I could have poured out everything. The hurt, the memories, the disappointment. I could have told her about the beer I drank in my pajamas while watching her 8th birthday party on repeat. I could have said that the silence was louder than any argument we'd ever had. But I didn't. Instead, I typed, me too. But I won't be bought, not even for you. I hovered over the send button for a few seconds, wondering if it was too harsh, too final. But the thing about boundaries, they don't mean anything if you're only willing to draw them in pencil. So I sent it. No reply came. Days passed. Then weeks. I stopped checking my phone every hour. I stopped explaining myself to people who asked about the wedding. I stopped wondering what her friends and in-laws thought of me. I started sleeping better, eating slower, breathing deeper. Grief, as it turns out, has a strange way of making room for peace once you stop fighting it. One afternoon, I found myself standing in her old bedroom again. The posters were still there. The bookshelf still sagged under the weight of every Harry Potter and Judy Blume paperback she'd ever owned. I sat on the bed and ran my fingers along the wooden headboard I built with my own hands when she turned 11. That room was a time capsule of a version of us that no longer existed. I didn't cry. Not this time. I just sat with it. All of it. The love. The loss. The truth that being a good parent doesn't always look the way people think it should. Sometimes it means showing up. Sometimes it means stepping back. And sometimes it means saying, I love you too much to let you treat me like I'm disposable. She may come around one day. She may not. If she does, I'll be here. Not waiting. Not holding a grudge. Just here. Solid, like I've always been. But she'll have to meet me at a level. No costumes. No conditions. Just truth. Until then, I've got my tools, my quiet mornings, and a few old DVDs that remind me of who we used to be. And while I may never walk her down an aisle, I know I never walked away from who I am. And that has to be enough. It is enough. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever faced a moment where you had to choose between love and self-respect, leave a comment and share your experience. If you believe in the power of setting boundaries, give this video a like to help others find it. Subscribe for more honest, emotionally grounded family drama stories. No filters, no fairy tales. Just the truth we all live through. And remember, Love should never come with a price tag. See you soon in the next story.